The energy markets with a keen eye on the cold blast set to hit the Midwest. Attorney General Eric Holder set to talk about the $7 billion settlement with Citi. And the owner of the Sacramento Kings talks LeBron. I'm Sandra Smith, and this is the Opening Bell.
This is Opening Bell from our studios in New York City. Here is
Well, welcome back to Opening Bell. Maria Bartiromo has the morning off. I'm Sandra Smith. We're just 30 minutes into the trading day, and the markets right now looking pretty good. That surprise beat by Citigroup has the Dow up 128 points, triple-digit gains there. The S&P up 10, the Nasdaq up 23. The Dow hitting a new record high just moments ago. My guests this hour are Paul Dietrich of Fairfax Global Markets and Stephen Schork from the Schork Report. Great day to have you both. But first, we want to bring in the latest on Citigroup. U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder expected to announce details of the bank's multi-billion-dollar settlement any moment now. The bank also reporting its second quarter earnings this morning. Ashley Webster joins us with the latest on that.
Well, we'll see what Mr. Holder has to say, Sandra. In the meantime, shares of Citi moving higher after the bank reported better than expected earnings for the second quarter. Citi earning an adjusted profit of $1.24 a share, easily beating the estimate. Revenue of nearly $19.4 billion, also topping expectations. The bank also announcing a $7 billion settlement with federal regulators over allegations it sold shoddy mortgages in the run-up to the financial crisis. The bank will pay a total of $4.5 billion in cash, also providing $2.5 billion in consumer relief. And as we say, U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder expected to announce the details any moment now. And of course, we will bring that to you live. Sandra.
Thanks, Ashley and Paul. The details of that $7 billion, $3 billion going towards relief, the other $4 billion just going to the government?
Yes, that's how it is. I mean, basically, it's kind of business as usual. I mean, Citibank defrauded its clients out of $3 billion. Nobody's going to jail, and the stock's up today.
And it was just kind of expected, and that's why the stock continues to go higher. It's up more than 3%, Steve.
Well, I think it's up higher because the settlement is going to be announced right before, or was announced right before the Q2 earnings, and the Q2 earnings came in as a beat. Unfortunately, when you look at those Q2 earnings, you're looking at a good portion of those earnings, which really aren't earnings, because it came in a $700 million loan loss reserve reduction. So we had a bit of accounting gimmickry. If you look at the diluted earnings per share, we're only looking on 3 cents here.
Interesting. And S&P Capital IQ Research was actually suggesting that we are going to see negative earnings growth in the financial sector. So this sort of setting a positive tone that may not have been expected. Now, Airbus spending more than $1 billion to retrofit its popular A330 passenger jet. Ashley Webster has the details on that.
Yes, Sandra, interesting. Airbus planning to spend almost $1.5 billion to upgrade its popular A330 jetliner, calling it the A330 NEO. NEO. The retrofit will double the life of the company's top-selling aircraft. Also promises a 14% savings in fuel using the new Rolls-Royce Trent 7000 engines. First deliveries, by the way, expected in late 2017. Sandra.
Aha, the big competitor to the Dreamliner, of course, Paul.
It seems like Airbus is always slightly behind Boeing. You look at every part of the market, and Boeing really has the efficiency.
They had such an opportunity, though, with all the problems that the 787 had.
Well, and to Paul's point, it just appears that Airbus is always a little bit late to the game. They decided to go large 10 years ago, right at the start of an epic commodity bubble when jet fuel prices quadrupled, at the same time when Boeing started to go more fuel efficient. So certainly Boeing is ahead of the curve when it comes to Airbus.
All right, well, they're spending a lot of money to try to compete. That delivery expected late 2017. Well, more money, more problems for General Motors as the company tries to put its massive recall behind it. Ashley Webster has more on that.
Yes, Sandra. Reuters reporting that federal prosecutors are developing a criminal fraud case against GM, dependent on whether the company made misleading statements about its deadly ignition switches leading up to that massive recall or recalls. According to the report, the probe is examining the automaker's communication activity over the past 10 years and coincides with at least a dozen other state-specific investigations. Meanwhile, GMC CEO Mary Barra heading back to Capitol Hill this week to be on the hot seat for yet another round of hearings. And you know she's going to get an earful.
Yeah, most likely. I mean, it just seems like the problems aren't over for GM.
Absolutely. And it really looks like we're looking at organizational corruption here that has led to the direct deaths of at least 10 people out there. Now, when we look at the GM GM as opposed to another great crisis in my bailiwick, the BP Macondo spill. When we look at the two companies tried to approach this. BP met this head on. They simply, if this was a lesser company, could have walked away and left that cleanup to the government. They've come back and they've tried to really address the issue and really public outreach to the communities down there on the Gulf Coast. Now we look at GM, lots of reports that this problem goes back to the 1990s, and simply we're looking at a dichotomy of two very different ways to run your company.
It's all about who knew what when, right, Paul?
They're going to write books about this period of corporate history, and it's going to be called The Age of the Empty Suit, because we had all these people. Mary Barra, who's been their senior executive for the last 10 years, she says she just found out about this problem when she testified for Congress. Citibank defrauding $3 billion of its clients' money. This is the reason why nobody outside of New York and Washington, D.C. trusts corporate American leadership.
Interesting. Ashley?
Well, what's interesting, guys, is that GM sales have not been hurt. In fact, the strange thing is, with all the recalls and the focus on safety, people now look at GM products and saying, well, anyone's going to get it right. GM will, which I find fascinating.
Yeah, and we're looking at the stock actually down to just 10 cents today, and actually been on an upswing over the past couple of months. That being said, talking general markets here, guys, everybody's talking about the next rate hike decision, when that's going to happen, when the tapering is going to come to an end. Citigroup beating earnings expectations. What's key as we start off this trading week, Stephen?
Well, we're looking at the trading week. We're looking at, again, a market that knows no bad news. For instance, going back to the Citigroup, they are rallying hard at the open market on what? On really kind of false numbers. So it's anywhere we're looking at a market that, I mean...
What do you mean false numbers?
Well, for instance, the beat at $1.24, but we look at penny 21, $1.21 of that came from a good portion from these earnings accounting with the loan loss reserve. So that's not earnings. But again, because we set the bar so low, we come in higher, and then the market takes us and just runs with it.
It's a conversation we have often, Paul, is does it matter how they got there?
It probably doesn't matter in the short run, but as an investor, we're looking at the risk premium, and I think risk is all on the other side, on the downside. You look at last Thursday when a little bank in Portugal, the Banco Espírito Santo, the Bank of the Holy Spirit, suspended trading, and the Dow's down triple digits. And I think anything, it could be Iraq, it could be Syria, it could be the Middle East and Israel and Palestine, something's going to trigger it, and then we're going to see the market correction that I think most people believe is coming this summer.
By the way, looking at the Dow, we see the S&P at 1978. The Dow is a point above where it would need to be to close at a record high today. 17,068 was the record. We're a couple points above there right now, so something to watch. Paul and Stephen, you're both going to stay with me. The Dow hitting a new record high.